Hi everyone, welcome to the next video in the new NAWBO DEI&B microlearning series. Today we're going to be focusing on inclusive leadership and psychological safety. So as a quick reminder, my name is Sertrice Shipley and I'm NAWBO National's DEI&B consultant, and going to be facilitating some of these videos for y'all to have a quick hit on learning in the DEI&B space that you can use in your chapters or back in your own organizations. So let's start with what is inclusive leadership. If you remember from the first video, we talked about inclusion being a behavior, it's a verb, it's what you do. So inclusive leadership is leadership that ensures all team members feel they are treated respectfully and fairly, are valued and sense that they belong, and are confident and inspired. So basically, it's leaders who use inclusive behaviors to make sure their employees, their team members, feel like they belong in the organization. And so first, let's start with some characteristics of inclusive leaders. So inclusive leaders, they're going to have a visible commitment to that inclusion, right? Authentically believing in it, challenging the status quo, holding others accountable to creating that environment. They're going to have humility, admitting that they make mistakes, they don't know everything and have all of the answers, encouraging others to contribute. They're going to be awareness of bias. We all have it, right? And so inclusive leaders are aware of their pain points and where bias shows up for them, typically. And then they're going to have curiosity about others. They're going to focus on relationship building, right? Getting to know each team member and what they need to best be supported. Effective collaboration, so empowering others to take part, paying attention to diversity of thought, and how do you bring that best together for solid team cohesion and the best results. And then lastly, cultural intelligence. And this is more than just culture based on ethnicity or nationality, but of a lot of different groups have their own culture, and making sure you get to know that and then adapting to meet those cultural needs. So those are some characteristics of inclusive leaders. But one of the things I really wanted to spend time today in our quick hit was on how inclusive leaders build psychologically safe teams, psychologically safe cultures, environments. And so psychological safety is when a person has willingness to speak up and contribute to conversations without fear of disapproval or retaliation. So there's two key things here, right? The goal is we want people to be able to speak up, whether that's sharing new ideas, voicing concerns, having different opinions from what the rest of the group is saying. We want them to feel like they can really take part. And then the second part is once they do that, we don't want them to have fear that there will be negative consequences, so retaliation for them speaking up, fear that if they speak up, it'll be frowned upon, that it's not expected, or fear that if they speak up, it's a waste of their time because their contributions are ignored. So a psychologically safe space is where someone feels like, nope, I can speak and it will be heard. It may not necessarily always be used, but at least I will be acknowledged and people will try to understand and hear me out. So as an inclusive leader, here's this list. I'm not going to go through every single one, but when creating psychologically safe cultures, there are some specific inclusive leadership behaviors you can be doing. First, it's important that you're building trust with your team members so they understand that it's safe, but also encouraging that trust between team members so they understand that that's an expectation of everyone involved, right? So you want to role model that, but also encourage it. You want to make sure you're clearly communicating expectations and how that information will be used and that you will respect it and things like that. Listening to your team, asking your team what they need to be successful and how to best support them. Making sure, again, that you're actually actioning that feedback, even if you don't use it, explaining why it's not aligned, right? We talk role modeling, successful failure and failing forward, really embracing that imperfection is acceptable. So those are some proactive things you can do. On the reactive side, right, there are a few things we can do as well because conflict will arise, mistakes will happen. And so it's important that if there are misunderstandings, you work to resolve those right away, right? Because that's going to preserve that ability to make progress moving forward, and it's not festering under the surface. Um, it's also important, I mentioned this a little bit about the successful failing forward, making sure that when you respond to mistakes, you focus on it as a learning opportunity, right? How do you grow? How do you, as a team, not even just that person, moving forward? Make sure you're providing support and encouragement when there are those setbacks, being there, being their champion, and sometimes on the tough side is we have to remove individuals whose behaviors don't align, right? You're building this culture of inclusion, of safety. And if you have a team member who is consistently creating this tension and not creating a safe space for everyone, that may, at a far end, that's an accountability measure we have to keep in mind as well. So when you look at this, you look at inclusive leadership, psychological safety, you may be thinking, well, this all sounds pretty easy, right? Get to know your people and then treat them how they want to be treated. The platinum rule. We want to respect them and just show up and be kind. But it's not always that easy, right? So what gets in the way? Well, there's a few things. One, just getting started, being mindful to think about this, finding the time, because as a leader, you have so much on your plate already, so many priorities. Finding the time to slow down and get to know each person, and then adapting and changing how you interact with the people and creating space for this collaboration, that all adds time to your day. And that can be a real barrier to making progress in building psychologically safe cultures. We talked feedback some, right? It can be hard sometimes to ask for feedback. It can be even harder to respond to that feedback. So that's a skill we have to practice and take time with. Making others comfortable in a situation, that goes with building that trust. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. And depending on your starting point, it can be a little difficult. Getting yourself comfortable too and ready, because again, not everyone naturally comes ready for these kinds of conversations and relationship building. But even if you are the most inclusive person, it can be hard to do this when you don't have responsive team members. I said relationship building is important. If your team members won't chat with you and hear you out, it can be difficult to make progress. Sometimes aligning your organization or chapter issues with what you need to do to be a more inclusive leader don't always come together, right? Sometimes there's different priorities. You may have budget concerns, and so that could get in the way. Managing our own biases and being aware of them is always something that can stand in the way. And, for something real functional, running inclusive meetings, it could be that small of something that could get in the way. So it's important we think through, yes, we know what inclusive leadership is. Yes, we know what psychological safety is, but what might be getting in the way for you? So speaking of, leaving you with some more self-reflection items that you can think on after watching this video. Thinking back to those traits, what would you consider as a strength of yours? Where do you think you have an area of opportunity? What's an inclusive leadership behavior that you can focus on this month to help increase psychological safety in your chapter or in your business if we look back at that list? And then as we ended just now, reflecting on those challenges. What's currently getting in the way of inclusive leadership in your chapter or in your own business as well? So that is our video for today. Hopefully that was helpful. Thanks again for listening in. As a reminder, there's my contact information if you have any questions or want to check in with the DEI&B committee. You can reach out to our DEIB@NAWBO.org email as well. All right, thanks y'all.